Sometimes at first glance it looks like things don't add up. Why is the Cake token suddenly going up? Why is PancakeSwap becoming more expensive when at the same time the capital that's locked up in the protocol is not increasing? Here is what I mean. Here is the total value locked to the capital on the PancakeSwap AMM, and it used to be at 8 billion and now went down to 1.3 billion. This is a very long-term chart. It starts in April 2021. At the same time, the capital on the Binance Smart Chain did recover a bit, at least comparatively speaking. Of course, within all of decentralized finance, the recovery is much larger. A lot of the second wave happened on Solana. So Solana pushed up the total value locked across all chains. The Binance Smart Chain did not contribute too much to that recovery. But then on the other hand, we see how Cake is up 32% this month. Here is one potential reason. PancakeSwap burned 45 million worth of Cake 2 days ago. Here is that transaction, and it might have created some bullishness around the token. Now, the Binance Smart Chain is dominated by PancakeSwap. On the entire chain, we saw 11.6 billion worth of trading volume in the last 24 hours. Only $500 million of that trading volume is on those other decentralized exchanges. The vast majority is on PancakeSwap. And so here's the first counter argument to why PancakeSwap can still hold value to a degree. Yes, the TVL, the capital on the protocol, tended to trend downwards, but the decentralized exchange trading volume is still comparatively high. So that's this purple zigzag line in the background. Over here, we've got the trading fees. Also, they're not necessarily that low. They're even higher compared to what we saw in DeFi summer. But then there's of course the dreaded topic of tokenomics. There is the demand side, which is the trading volume, which is the usage of the platform. But then there's also the supply side. And there are a lot of trickeries around the tokenomics, around the supply side of the Cake token. It appears as if investing in Cake is a good idea because of the burning mechanism. But then we've also got issuance. Now the total supply is here in blue. And yes, this did peak in July of 2023. But the circulating supply continues to go up. There's still some space to grow. And yes, the growth in the past did hurt the price. Providing liquidity for PancakeSwap gets incentivized, but that incentive tends to go down over time. There's also a staking program, or should I rather say there was a staking program. We made a lot of money with this, by the way. There was a time when you deployed Cake tokens in the protocol, you got 100% return after 1 year. And at the same time, you were able to borrow the token for just 20% on DeFi apps. At the time, when everybody was locking up their Cake, there was pretty much free money to be made. And we made this here on this channel. I talked about this in the premium membership, link is down below, but that's now several years ago. After 1 year, the first people that locked up their Cake could withdraw it again. And this is when this turned around. And this is, by the way, also when we shorted the Cake token. Just have a look at this. The end of April 2023, that was over here. Cake absolutely got decimated, a 70% loss. It's always nice when an asset has been around for a while and there has been some kind of history. Feel free, by the way, to also check out the prior videos on Cake on this channel around that time. Cake made me a lot of money throughout the years because if you know how to read the data, you can beat the market. By the way, this is now our secondary staking program, the vCake staking program. Again, the sum of both of this is declining over time. So Cake is getting unstaked, and that of course also depresses the price, right? The more there is circulating Cake, the more people unstake their Cake to then sell it, the more the price is going down. There were a few short squeezes of Cake in the past. So here is one short that I made in the middle of February and then closed it in the middle of March. That was the first short. Then here was a second short. So there is an interesting trading range to take advantage of. So let's have a look at this. What we're seeing over here is Cake relative to BNB. It seems like a very constant underperformer, and all of that marketing jazz around the great tokenomics of Cake obviously could not materialize. From the top in April of 2021 to the current price, Cake underperformed Bitcoin by almost 97%. But instead of looking at the relative valuation to Bitcoin, it might make sense to look at the relative valuation to BNB, because Cake mainly gets traded versus BNB. So that's this chart here. This is Cake relative to BNB, a very similar chart, with the only difference that we seem to be closer to the resistance and that maybe we could already go down here. Now this chart explains why I was betting on falling prices of Cake, not on rising prices. I always try to have the macro in mind. When the overall trend is bearish, I'm looking for entry opportunities of shorts, so to bet on falling prices. When the overall trend is bullish, we tend to go up. I try to buy the dips. So it works in both directions. Is it now a good time to enter a cake short? It's not yet that obvious, but this chart here definitely would imply the answer is yes. Now here's the cake dominance, also an interesting word to say, but it shows how much of the entire cryptocurrency market cap is currently in the PancakeSwap token. It peaked at 0.33% and it's now at 0.025%. Again, cake tended to underperform the rest of crypto for quite a while. My impression is that the current rally will deflate at some point again. But this very long-term trend where cake underperforms the rest of the market might maybe in a year or so turn around again. So those trends will not last forever because at one point the circulating supply will hit the total supply and there won't be that much more growth. And the unstaking of the locked cake has also run its course. It will not happen tomorrow, it will not happen next month, but maybe a year from now that could be the case. And then maybe this long-term bearish trend can turn around. And then maybe it makes sense to not short cake anymore. Right now, of course, I'm looking for entry opportunities to still bet on falling prices. I'm not doing it yet, but once we start declining a little bit, an entry could make sense. I don't have to find the exact bottom. I'm okay to short, say, from this point to this point over here. And so this is simply how I see it. I want to make sure that the current bullishness has turned around and that we can then make money while this is going further down. Now, the exact entry of that short, of course, I'm not sharing directly here on YouTube. That's going to be just for the premium members again. Now, after so many years in crypto, I think there's only two strategies to make money in this market. It's either trying to find altcoins very early, potentially using wallet tracking, buying things before the masses do. And while this is a strategy that can work, it's also comparatively risky. Things like Virtual Protocol or SPX 6900 went up massively this year. But if instead you bought Optimism or IMX or Polygon, you wouldn't have had such a nice time. Now with small bets, a few $100s here and there, the strategy does make sense. But for the vast majority of the portfolio, we have to take less risk. Now, the common narrative is that this less risky bet is simply Bitcoin. And while it's true that there's less risk in Bitcoin than in many altcoins, the price can still go down by 77%. So what can we do? I think the answer lies in taking advantage of crypto's market structure. Most altcoins underperform Bitcoin most of the time. So for example, have a look at this again, right? This is the performance of the top 100 cryptocurrencies in the last year. Again, SPX 6900 outperformed everything else. And here at the bottom, we see Bitcoin. So in the last year, Bitcoin appreciated by almost 72%. Now, how many altcoins outperformed Bitcoin? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Out of 100 altcoins, 17 outperformed Bitcoin and all of the others underperformed. And so with a larger part of the portfolio, we can take advantage of this market structure. So instead of buying Bitcoin, we can buy this here. Now, this is the exact same time frame that we see in those charts. And what we see here is again a Bitcoin chart, but it's slightly different. It's not Bitcoin relative to the US dollar. It's Bitcoin relative to Balancer. So what we are seeing here is Bitcoin's relative performance to one of the altcoins, an altcoin that tended to underperform over the long term. Now, why do we see that constant outperformance of Bitcoin over the alts? So it's not just that most altcoins underperform, it's also that the underperformance tends to be rather constant. The reason for this is tokenomics. It's an expanding token supply. Because that's how the venture capitalists and the members of the teams of all those projects make their money. They've got a vesting schedule. They get a token allocation, but they can't sell directly. They have to sell over time, and that depresses the price relative to Bitcoin. Yes, on bullish days, everything is going up. But when we zoom out a little bit, most altcoins are not doing as well as Bitcoin. Now, this is not common knowledge, but we can actually set up a position in a portfolio in a way that we make money when the relative performance of an asset versus another one is going up. So we don't have to bet on the crypto macro. We don't have to bet on Bitcoin going up or down. We can just make money when something outperforms or underperforms. Now, I've made several tutorials on that topic, how to profit from falling prices or gaining from relative valuations, or over here, how to win in bear markets by shorting altcoins. Now, it's not important what the macro is doing if we focus on the relative valuation. Again, the nice thing about the strategy is that it works in any market condition. At the bottom is again Bitcoin. Bitcoin has its massive crashes, and the largest retracement that we saw in this chart was maybe 50%, while the gain was much, much larger. So this is an 8,000% gain in relative valuation, while Bitcoin itself only made 100%. And so I'm of course sharing my own trades as well. Check this out. This is where I opened a short position, a relative short position on the Trump token. That was on April 30th. What we see here is Trump relative to Solana. Some community members entered the short as well. And then I closed the position a few days later for a gain of 142%. Now I actually shorted Trump twice, so this was an earlier trade. And again, here are a few other trades that our community members are making. So if we set this up right, if we've got risk management and hedging properly in place, there is real risk-adjusted alpha in positions like this. And so of course I shorted the Trump token again because of the tokenomics. Over time, the Trump supply increases. And it's really important to understand this concept. I believe that risk adjusted, if you want to make large bets, not just a small bet on the altcoins that might do 100x, if you want to bet a lot of money of our portfolio, then we have to bet on something that risk adjusted performs relatively consistently. So this is Trump in US dollars. And if you just bet on Trump going down, then when the market itself is appreciating, you've got a problem, right? Over this time frame, Trump did not go down. However, Solana relative to Trump went up. So that's the exact same time frame. That's a gain of 35%. So it's all about looking at what tends to do worse relative to something else over time. And how to set up those positions is explained in the videos over here. And so feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. It used to be 165 at the peak of the bull run. Now attention is still relatively low, and so you can lock in the lower rate. I will not increase the rate for anybody that's already subscribed. Only the people that sign up when everything is hyped, they will get the higher price. But if you sign up now, you lock in that price. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish here regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. Feel free to also check out Premium. Again, the link should be somewhere over here. You can just click on the link here. It should bring you to the website. And so yeah, see you next time on YouTube or see you in Premium. Cheers.